Welcome back, fans, riders. I've got a special guest, a privateer legend in my book, the dude that is going on the box van that's making stuff happen, the White Knight of motocross, let's say it. It is Nick Tomasunas. Shit. Tomasunas. Is it?
Tomasunas.
I'm just going to
go.
call you Nick, okay?
Yeah,
Dude,
that works for me.
I'm sorry. I'm hopefully that doesn't happen. Does that happen often?
Very often. Most people call me Nick T. The announcers don't even try to pronounce my name. They just call me the Rider in White. So I'm used to it.
We should start calling you the White Knight is what we should start
Yeah,
calling
I've
you.
heard that one too. I've heard that one a lot too.
Good, man. Well, how old are you, Nick?
I am 23. I turned 24 in November.
Cool. And how long have you been riding?
Since I was 3, racing since I was like 9, I would say, but I didn't really get serious with it till I was like 14, 15. So I had a little bit of a late start, like doing the amateur nationals and stuff.
Was it a family member that got you real big into it? A dad or a brother? Or
My dad was pretty heavy into it. Nobody else really in my family was into it, but it's the typical, like, your dad gets you the PW50 at 3, and then he takes the training wheels off, you do the local thing, and start doing well, blah, 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 right? So
Yeah.
That's kind of how it started.
Well, when did you realize that, hey, you wanted to try to make a living racing motorcycles?
I went to the Baja Brawl in 2013, and I won the title there in Schoolboy 1, and I beat Austin Faulkner and Alexander Fry, and then the year before I actually beat Plessinger straight up. So I was like, okay, like, I'm pretty good. Obviously, this was before those guys' careers kind of took off. But I still, I was like, okay, these guys are known, they're making podiums at Loretta's. They're doing well. I'm, up at that caliber. Let's try to make a run at this.
And I guess here, I'll just interject a little bit here. If comparing is really never a good thing. It takes away of like all of personal satisfaction once you start comparing with somebody. However, there is a saying with having just resources behind you. Did you think that those guys, did they do more amateur nationals than you, and just got some more sponsors moving forward? Because if you were competing with them,
I would definitely say, like, they were obviously into the amateur national, and they were racing so much more than me. Like, I was in Michigan till I was, like I said, 14, 15 years old. I didn't really even know anything about, like, the whole chase this, get a ride thing. I was just like, oh, I don't know, these kids just have rides, I guess. I just kind of lined up and raced. So I don't know. I guess that's how that is. But
my perspective on stuff with how many people that I have talked to since I basically retired and I started talking shit on the internet has been there's a thing called the compound effect, where you guys start off incredibly close, and then people just start getting more and more resources and help, and that's kind of where the gap starts happening. Like, it's not a coincidence that all, Dungy, Barsha, everybody that you name it that is inside the top 10, they've been racing with each other for the top for the past 20 years. I know a lot of riders that have beaten the top factory guys at certain races here. Even where I'm back from in Colorado, some of the top local guys there, whenever Tomac came out, they would not smoke Tomac, but they would beat him. They would beat him.
Yeah.
But then once you get to the national and the stakes are all of a sudden raised quite a bit as far as resources go, then they start looking like a fish out of water.
Yeah,
but
it's definitely, resources definitely play a big factor in it. I wouldn't say at the amateur level as much as it does in the pro level, but resources, even from the very beginning, like, a lot of the kids now, like, let's use Austin Faulkner, for example. He's had, resources, and way more resources than the average kid racing, a super mini, right? And he's obviously going to have more help and get a little bit farther along. Obviously, resources don't make you go fast on the track necessarily. I mean, they do, but, like, they don't make you twist the throttle, right? They don't make you go out and know how to race and all that stuff. But resources do help you gain confidence in your equipment, gain confidence in your program, yada, yada, yada. So
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Nick. I'm not saying that you can just take EPO and all of a sudden you are the shit. You know, it's a perfect
Yeah.
storm. But
Hmm.
like yourself, you take somebody that is, I'm a big believer that the majority of the privateers, given the proper equipment and the proper time to train, like all of you guys are badasses. All of you guys know how to push the envelope and just have the dopamine and adrenaline rush and like not give a shit if you kind of live or die when you're racing, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
You know, you guys
Yeah.
all know how to push the limit and push those motorcycles relatively to the breaking point. And you give a rider like that, plus a bunch of support, plus a bunch of track time, and
Hmm.
eventually you'll start seeing that 1% gap go to 5% gap to
Yep.
max kind of like 10% gap. And that's usually what we see at the Nationals, is we see guys that are right around, 5 to 10% faster than the other riders. If I put the lap times together, those guys, usually Tomac and them, are right around 10 seconds a lap faster than the majority of the privateers. And that's where I kind of get with this, my whole statistics on stuff.
Hmm.
And a lot of those kids are bred. Like the newest kid right now is Deegan. That's kind of been not taking anything away from his work ethic or anything. I have a perspective where I feel like a lot of these kids get lucky. Yes, talent, work ethic, but they also have to be lucky. And somebody like
Hmm.
yourself, you've got talent, you've got work ethic. Unfortunately, you were missing the one that you kind of missed out a little bit on the whole getting lucky thing. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And I can't be too salty about that. I try not to, get mad, say, oh, if I would have got a ride or this or that. I look at it like this is how my journey's supposed to go, right? This is what I'm supposed to be going through. I try not to dwell too much on, I didn't get lucky or I didn't do this or I didn't do that. I feel like that has, if I used to think like that, and that kind of just rapidly declined my mental health, and I just had to get away from it. That's kind of why like I haven't really been racing as much anymore. Like I felt like I would get in this weird little slump and kind of go downhill with it mentally and be like, why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing that? Why am I not, the top 10? Like you said, comparing, like I used to, I beat Faulkner, I beat Plessinger, and these dudes are, fucking lapping me. So it definitely affects your mental health as well.
and Nick, I'm not telling you here that it's over with. You're 23 years old. You are a young man,
Yeah.
dude. You should be
Yeah.
just full of piss and vinegar, just holding it
Mhm.
WFO, man. Just there.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that riding a dirt bike, again, um, here I'm kind of being the big brother here just a second, is that, dude, again, that work ethic. If there
Mhm.
comes a time when you decide not to chase this dream anymore, as long as
Mhm.
you turn all that passion into something else in a professional life, you're going to be successful, dude. And even though
Yeah.
you kind of feel like, I don't know what the fuck to do, you will figure it out. You will absolutely figure it out, and you will hit it ninth gear pinned, just like closing your eyes, go through a set of whoops. You'll make it happen, dude. You'll make it happen, dude.
Yeah.
Well, let me turn the conversation just a little bit about how's your year been here in 2022?
Honestly, like if we want to talk on the bike and racing wise, I literally only did one national. I qualified straight in. I think I qualified like 32nd, 33rd. I don't even know what I got in the motos. I finished them, but other than that, like I've been so busy. I don't know if you know, I'm a pretty big part in this company called MX Locker. We're like the marketplace of motocross, like
Yep.
Facebook Marketplace, Grailed type deal. So I'm like a pretty big part in that, and that's kind of shifted, like you were just saying, like when I shift away from racing, not saying that I'm totally shifting away from it, but like business and everything has kind of started to take over most of my time. And it's been very successful. Like that business is growing exponentially, and it's great. Like I was supposed to race Millville this year, but after Redbud, I kind of got a call. I was like, hey, we're bringing Jeff Emig on. Like we got to go out to California. Like you got to fly out the Sunday after Millville. And I sat there and I thought, and I was like, you know what? Like that, I can come back to racing if I want to race next year. I'm still young, like you said. I can go and do Millville again next year, right now, let's focus on that. I want to make sure I'm healthy for that. I don't want to show up with a cast on my arm or, on crutches or something, right? So I had to prioritize and, kind of figure out like, do I really want to make that risk, and do I really want to go and race, or do I want to see where this goes? I got to fucking sit down with Jeff Emig for like 3-4 days straight, just brainstorming with him and talking to him and getting to know him. And I felt like that was more important than going out and, risking racing. And I'm not saying I'm totally like taking away the risk, because I still ride probably like 3 to 4 days a week. But that extra like 10%, 20% risk that you're taking lining up with 40 dudes, you can't really control it. It just didn't seem worth it to me.
Funny segue. If let's say the purse was, excuse me, something's stuck in my throat here. Okay.
You're good.
I was eating some cereal and it must have just got stuck in my throat.
Yeah.
Evan Hoffer here is having some Cheerios before he's getting on the Zoom meeting. I was thinking of something that's tiny enough so that I could feed my daughter, so that if I'm just miss her for a second, she's not going to choke. And then look at me, I'm the asshole that's choking on Cheerios.
Funny how that works.
But my segue was, if the purse money was exponentially more than what just like a local race was, to where, hey, top 40 rider, you're guaranteed $2 to $5 grand a race. Would that change your dynamic of risk versus reward? Like, I'm going to go race Millville because I can make more money at it, and I'll continue to feed the need of that adrenaline, and then, people being around you, the whole crowd thing, being the superstar, because all the fans know that you guys are rock stars. What's interesting is the industry doesn't treat you guys like rock stars. You guys are just gladiators that are essentially slaves to the organization, where you risk your lives. I know it sounds shitty, but you're smiling at me because exactly. Yeah. So I guess that was if the purse money was greater, would that change the dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, definitely if I wasn't at a loss going and racing, it would definitely change it, because no matter what I get, I'm pretty sure I could go out and get like 10th. I don't have a team salary. I don't have bonuses. If I went out and got 10th, what is that, like $600-800 the 450 class? I don't know. It's not enough to make it profitable. So it's just kind of like, fuck it. Like, I don't think this is worth it, especially when I'm losing money, and I'm not, and it makes, like you said, if there was a bigger purse, it would make it more enjoyable as well. Because, knowing you're going to go out, let's go suffer, let's put on this show like we're clowns in a circus, and let's financially, be at a loss. It's just, it kind of sucks. So definitely if the purse money was bigger, it would have a bigger play. Like I said, in my situation, like I probably would have went to Millville if I knew I was going to make $5 grand, or at least profit like 2 or 3. I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go do it. If I could go finish one lap in both motos, still take a couple grand home and get out of there safe,
Do you mind sharing what you got paid at Redbud for 35th?
Dude, I mean, 35th isn't going to pay well, no matter what you finish.
Well,
but
I think the pay stays the same per moto until you get in top 20, I think is what it is.
It was like $220 per moto. I think, no, I don't know. I got like $15 more for getting 30. I went like 36 or 34, 31 or something. I got $465 maybe, like two something per moto.
And entry fee was what? 300?
No, it was, I think it might have been 270, but I think when I went to sign up for Millville, it was like 300. Like they just randomly bumped it up. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that, but it was, dude, it's like more than you make.
Yeah, I know.
Plus you got to pay for the license. Plus you got to pay for your mechanic, the mechanic pass, the crew pass, or whatever they call it for your, say your family's there, your friend's there, girlfriend, and gas to get there, blah, blah, blah. It could go on forever, right? And your mechanic has to have the AMA thing, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, or they can't be on the side unless they have a $60 membership to AMA.
Then my dad got yelled at in staging because he didn't have a collared shirt on. I almost like wasn't able to go out for one of the practices because they said I'm obviously rocking all white, right? And my numbers are gray. They said my numbers were too light. I had to go back and change my jersey.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just ridiculous.
Not that
It's
I'm
just
docking on the sport too much, but I'm just being openly honest. You know, it's like, hey, they're not paying their participants enough, but yet they're complaining about if they don't look professional or not. And I made a video recently. It was one of my Patreons that brought up some of the math, and he was like, hey, Johnny, if we just have an extra $5 per ticket sold and you have 10, 20,000 people at the Nationals, everybody that made the motos would have a minimum of $2,000 to race there for 40th, you know. And then you could say the top 10 guys or so on and so forth that aren't that have factory contracts, they could kind of say, hey, we're not going to pay them and we'll just kind of help out the privateers, because this sport is built off of the privateers and their families, because they're the ones bringing everybody to the races. You know, they're the ones that it's just 80% of the privateers and their families. And they're the ones that turn into the diehard fans and blah, 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 blah. It's not watching the Tomacs go out there and race, even though we need to have the Tomacs out there, but you also need to have him race against 39 other riders. So that's a big portion of it is the silly purse, dude. And I'm sorry that you're struggling with that, because every privateer that I've talked to, there comes a breaking point where they're just like, it's not worth it anymore financially. Like, I love to do it, but it's not worth it anymore. Kevin Moran's, he's making it happen. You actually beat him in qualifying at Redbud. I don't know if you know that or not, but he is making it because he's got Patreons and he's charging $100 a Patreon. And so he is at a net positive getting to the races because the fans are funding his race effort, which is awesome.
Funny stat. I had a pretty good month with like real views or something on Instagram. I made more off Instagram the month of Redbud than I did actually at Redbud. I just thought that was a funny stat to throw out there, because that's just like ridiculous. Like me, and that's why I just said screw the Nationals, and I'm just like posting videos and shit on Instagram all the time, because it's like, dude, I can make more money doing that. And as sad as that sounds, I can make more and have more fun and over like racing. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Dude, that is really sad. And that kind of is why Deegan, in my perspective of stuff, he can kind of do whatever he wants, pick whatever team, just because of how much followers that he's able to bring to everyone. And you make a good point. That's why a lot of those freestylers end up stop racing motorcycles or racing motocross, because they're like, hey, we can go make more money at a show and ride not near as much and just hang out with our buddies. Yeah, it might seem a little bit more risky, but they end up making more money at it, dude. It's a bummer. It's a bummer. So what started the whole white bike deal?
Okay, so I knew this question would come up. So back in 2015, I think I was at a regional.
How old were you in 2015?
I was 16. I think I just got my driver's license. So I was 16 years old. I was at this regional, broke my femur. I got cross jumped by another rider. That's a whole nother story. Broke my femur. Really, really bad complications. Damn near lost my entire leg from the hip down. Right at 16 years old. Lost all of my sponsors. Had zero support. And I was laying in the hospital bed with my mom, and she was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's throw you in all white gear, all white bike, no logos, no nothing, and let's see how much attention it can get, right? So I was like, I whatever, like, sure, I'm thinking she's just talking shit, right? She's just saying shit to make me like feel better or something. So we ended up doing it, and right away, like, it just caught traction. Like, I was all over the internet. I have like this one photo that I'm still seeing like at least every couple times a month. And it just blew up. And I initially just wanted to stick with it until I got like a gear sponsor or something. But like the amount of traction I was getting versus like the the 50-60% off like fly gear or something. I was, the offers I was getting, I was like, dude, like, let's just fucking stick with it. And then eventually Michael Lieb from Canvas, which was actually the gear I was wearing at the time, stepped up. Was like, hey, I'll get you a couple sets of gear. We'll get you some black gear as well. Like, I see what you're doing. And he was awesome. I'm very thankful for Michael, but he kind of stepped up, helped me out with some gear. And then that just kind of stuck all the way through the rest of my amateur career into my pro career. And I just haven't left it. It's more of like a trademark now than anything. It's, it works. Like I can get 40th at a national, and I'll still have people coming up to me. Dude, and I'll still have cameras in my face and everything. It's crazy.
Your mom is a marketing genius. That
Yes.
was an awesome thing to do. And that's really how I've said it before, that racing motorcycles is no longer like a competitive sport. It's more or less about entertainment. And it's like, how do we draw more eyes somewhere? Like you look at what the UFC has done, and it's created, it is exploded exponentially, and it's because they've created this whole show. Even though it's still around a sport, they've created this whole show, and they're only like doing super fights. It's not like, hey, you're number one and you're number one. The number one guy can say, hey, I don't want to fight the number two guy. I want to fight the number five guy because it's going to make more views, kind of thing. Like that doesn't happen in racing, and it's just silly. And the diehard fans want to keep racing the same, but in order to get more views, we've got to change it up. And that's kind of like what the whole world Supercross is doing. And as far as changing it up, what would you like to see changing? Like, do you think a stock class in outdoor motocross, maybe on Sunday or Friday during press day, or just after the rest of the motos, where it's not a factory class, but there's a lot of attention on it, and it's just like the fastest local and privateer guys just going at it, even if it's like Yamaha sponsors the entire series one year, then Kawasaki? Do you think that would help grow the sport?
That would actually be pretty cool. I've actually never even thought about something like that. But yeah, I think there needs to be something else besides like the regular show, because you get to a point where it's like kind of boring. Like, these three dudes are out front and blah, blah, blah. So you need, like, I loved when they had the 125 All-Star thing. Like, even when I was racing at that national, I would make sure I'm out watching that just because it's something different, right? And everybody loves two strokes, the whole blah, blah, blah. But I definitely think maybe a stock class, or like this Moto Combine thing is pretty sick. Maybe they should do it like on Saturday or something, like after practice. I don't know, but just definitely switch it up with something like that would be beneficial for them, I think.
As a rider, that raced this year, do you think that I get a lot of slack for saying this, but I almost feel that we should have 3 motos that are 20 minutes long each, because once you get past kind of that 15-minute mark, your heart rate is pegged at 200 beats. There's only a select few riders that keep pushing. The rest of the guys are just kind of, all right, I'm in 19th. I'm just riding to finish, kind of a thing, because the track is so gnarly. They're just kind of out there finishing. But if we cut it to another moto, it would still be the same amount of time on the track, essentially, but there would be an extra race for people to watch, and it would actually be closer racing. What do you feel about something like that?
That could definitely be pretty cool. Obviously, you'd have to test it out, but I think just change something. They need to change something, just because it's, like you said, at the halfway mark. Like, I've talked to so many privateers that are like, dude, you just got to make it to 15 minutes and just ride. So that's obviously not very fun for the fans to watch if they know, dude, after 5th or 3rd or something, they're just kind of out there circulating. That's not too much entertainment for the fans.
And I know you talked about the nostalgia of the 2-strokes. Dude, we're in the midst, I know, of this whole green energy stuff. It's going to happen. How do you feel about electric bikes? Would you buy one? Would you race one? Should they stay out of the sport? I mean, just be honest, Nick.
I would. It's funny because I've tried getting hooked up with like Stark, and I'm talking to another company currently. I'm all for the e-bike. I feel like I would have to have a completely different class. I don't want to get rid of like engines and gas powered machines, but I think e-bikes could be cool. I want to get like a Stark Varg or something just to go and play ride with. It wouldn't replace my current bike. I would never get rid of my 450. Like, one, I'm too big of a kid. Two, I think you just can't get rid of, like, even like two strokes, you can't get rid of that. Like, that's, there's diehard two-stroke fans, there's diehard four-stroke people, and there'll eventually be diehard e-bike people, right? But I'm all for it.
You said you're a big dude. How tall are you? How much do you weigh?
I'm 6'1". I fluctuate between like 200 and 215.
Okay, so that's why ever since you pretty much turned pro, you've been in the 450 class. Was that by design because you just feel like a 250 doesn't suit you?
I did, I mean, yeah, kind of, but I did 250 class my first year. I actually qualified in the first 250 national I did, and then I did Budds Creek and was off by like a tenth. I think I qualified 37th and just sucked in the LCQ or something. But yeah, after that, I was like, dude, these 250s, I can't ride them no more. Like, I can't get starts on them. Like, I remember my first moto at Redbud on the 250. I was literally 40th halfway down the straight. And I like thought I had a good start and got a good jump. And I was like, dude, this sucks. Like, I can't suffer through this anymore.
Well, again, that's kind of why I feel the stock class would be a good representation of talent, because you wouldn't have these, because like a factory 250, even at the amateur nationals, the Star Yamahas, the pro circuit bikes, those guys are just above and beyond what you could basically get on your own, unless you're willing to spend 50 to 100 grand. If they had a stock class, they could have a bunch of guys that you would randomly have, these names like Nick T that pops into the top 5 kind of thing. You're like, where the heck is that dude? And, I think it would help a lot with gaining more traction to more viewers, where you're not just used to just these couple names just being out front all the time. My next question for you, Nick, is how difficult has it been on you and your family getting to where you are now in racing motorcycles? I know at the beginning of this, you said that you struggled a little bit with maybe some mental health with what this sport has done. If you don't mind kind of maybe going in vaguely about it, or you could go a little bit more in depth if you'd like to. I know that's a loaded question, dude.
No, I appreciate questions like that. It was definitely very, very hard. My parents, when I was first moving down south, I went to Club MX first, I think. Yeah, Club MX first. And I was there for like a couple months. But we sold our house. Like, I don't really talk about it that much, but we sold our house. Like, we were full into it, and we were obviously so oblivious. Like, I'm grateful for the risks that my parents took on me, but that's like, now knowing how much pressure that was on me, dude, it was not good. Like, I definitely struggled just right from the get-go, knowing that like this is all like on my back. Not like my parents. My dad was retired. I was I moved down to Club Mex when I was 14. So I was 14 years old. It was right after I did that Baja Brawl thing. It's like 2 months later. We were just like, fuck it, and pulled the trigger. But yeah, I was like 14. Parents sold the house. Like, dude, it was rough. And we were living out of motorhome. Like, my dad and I were living in the motorhome. My mom was still here in Michigan at the time, working full time and staying with my grandpa. But dude, it was like, I can't even put into words how tough it was. And I know so many other kids that have been through so much more. So I don't want to say like, oh, woe is me, blah, blah, blah. There's other kids out there that have done the
fuck
same.
that, dude. This is your story. Everyone experiences pain differently. Everyone has a different way of grieving when it comes to losing something. So yeah, no, this is all you, dude. Totally unfiltered. I'm with you. Everyone that will listen to this as well are gonna, everybody in the comments, let's give Nick a massive WFO brop for him and let him know that we support him. And anybody that's been in this sport, dude, knows some of the trials and tribulations, even if they're not the same. But I interrupted you, Nick.
No, you're good.
I just
But
wanted to let you know, dude, that just keep going. Just keep going.
yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, I was at Club Mex for like 3 months. I ended up leaving club. They were all at Daytona. I wasn't racing Daytona that year, so I went down to MTF for like a week. Um, for somewhere to ride, because at that time club was shut down, nobody could ride. So we went down to Cairo, Georgia to ride MTF. I actually came back to club. They kicked me out because I did that.
Wait.
That's
So
a
they
like
they kicked you out because you were
yes.
going somewhere
I'm
else.
not talking shit. I have no problem with Club Mex at all. Brandon Haas is a great guy. Mike, their trainer at the time, is also a great guy. But they were not too thrilled, so they kind of like just kicked me out. So
And you were
I
a
got
paying
back and
customer, and
yeah, yeah. It's I'm not gonna get into too many details, but yeah, it wasn't good. So we called Colleen back up and like, hey, I don't know if you have a spot for a full timer or not, but we don't really have anywhere to go. So we're coming down. And, I went down to MTF. Colleen was great. She, accepted me right off the get-go and everything was great. But I was still, me and my dad were still living out of a motorhome just to make things like float. My dad was working like part-time here and there. He would go to work in the morning. I would go out and ride. He'd come back, work on my bike. I'm in the gym doing school, the whole thing, right? And he was even the mechanic at the MTF shop for a little bit. And then he worked for when Anthony Rodriguez was on Star. He was his practice mechanic for a short time. But he was picking up jobs here and there just to make things float and get parts for my bike. Like my practice bike was just ragged on like 70, 80 hours. Like, dude, I remember like the trainer there was like, dude, like, is your bike good? Like, you need to get a new bike. And I'm like, I can't, we're doing what we can. Like I have my Race 250 actually sitting right here in my room that I rode from that year in Schoolboy 2 all the way through my first year pro. So I rode a 2014 YZ250F from Schoolboy 2, 250B, 250A, and then my first year pro. So we were working with very like 2 bikes a year, like just barely making ends meet and trying to do it right. And like I said, it was tough physically. Doing the training is tough mentally, like trying to stay on top of that. And then once I got hurt and broke my femur, that's when the decline really started, because the day after, I want to say, I broke my femur, like that was obviously the biggest injury in my life, right? Actually, let me backtrack. That 2014, 2015, my first year down south, I went to Loretta's, did 2 corners, blew my ACL out. So that was completely gone. That entire year was gone,
you didn't
just
fix
like
it?
that. I fixed it, came back the next year. That's when I broke my femur. So I didn't race Loretta's again. So we were, I don't know, 60, 80, maybe probably even $100,000 into this. I haven't even done Loretta's, right? So that was already tough on my parents. Like they were trying not to be moto parents, but they're like, dude, like you got to start doing this, or like we got to figure something else out,
Yeah,
But
and dude,
after
that's a
that,
lot of pressure for. I know you love your parents. I have
mhm,
a similar story, and that's why like I can connect with you here. And I'm like, that's
mhm,
a lot of pressure to put on a 16, 17-year-old kid that you're still a minor. Again, I
yeah,
know you love your parents, but it's just that's such an all-in experience that people don't see all this stuff. And
mhm. It was gnarly. It was so gnarly. And I'm sitting, like I said, the day after, I'm sitting there just fresh out of surgery. The surgeon botched the surgery, by the way. I'll get into that later. But fresh out of surgery, my mom walks in. She drove all night, and she walks in. She goes, "I have breast cancer." So I was dealing with that. Um, dude, I couldn't even handle it. Like I almost like blacked out. Like I was hysterical. Like at that time, I felt like everything was like my fault, and it was like really fucking with me. And I was like really down, and I didn't know the surgeon botched the surgery at that time. Like I was just hysterical over my mom's cancer. And then thankfully, like they got that taken care of, and she's all good now. But it was gnarly, and like a couple of days later, they were trying to get me to get up and like walk. And after you break your femur, they throw a rod in, they try to get you like up on your feet. And I couldn't do it. And I was like, I had blood clots starting. Like I literally couldn't bend my knee. You couldn't even tell where my knee was because my leg was so swollen. And I'm sitting there like they're telling me they're going to have to cut my leg off if they can't fix it, blah, blah, blah. I get an infection, more blood clots. Like I had to go in for multiple surgeries. I think four or five at the time. Had to get it all like, dude, I had like this wound vac in me. I had to get a PICC line. Actually, I had to get two of these, but I had a PICC line from here all the way up to the top of my heart, and they would pump antibiotics in me every, I think it was 8 hours, for 3 months straight. So like 3-4 o'clock in the morning to have to wake up and do it, and it was gnarly.
And probably a shit ton of catheters and a lot of drugs.
Yeah, the catheters were not fun. I was fucked up on
with like, fuck, dude. Some statistics that I'm just gonna throw at you here for a second. Did you know that 8% of all adults suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder? And the majority of professional riders that I've talked to, I'm not a psychologist, okay? So don't take what I say worth a damn. But it just seems as if, I don't know if you froze, Nick, or not. I might have lost you here. But it appears that a good portion, that number far exceeds 8% when it comes to professional riders because of shit that they've had to go through in their lives, not just financially, emotionally, physically, mentally. Okay. And dude, like life has been real for you, man. And that's what sucks about this sport, is because it takes a rock and it squeezes it until it bleeds, and rocks don't bleed. And I'm only laughing because it's so silly. Man.
It was definitely gnarly, and dude, it was crazy. It was a crazy experience for, a 16-year-old just to go through all that.
Do you have a good relationship with your parents today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They still support me in everything they do. Like my dad was working on my bike today. So I try to include him, even if, he was a little upset that I told him this year, like, I don't really want to race that much anymore. He was a little upset because he still sees like that kid that can go out there, be competitive. And, I was like, just kind of over it and whatever, but he was a little upset, but he was like, you know what, we've done it. We've been there. I'll support you no matter what you do. If you want to fucking go race quads, whatever you want to do, I'll support you. So
you're growing into a young man, and that's really cool that your dad is being supportive for you, because there's one person in your life, Nick, that knows where you've been and has seen it firsthand, and that's definitely your dad that's been there. So I commend you. Don't lose that relationship, brother. Don't lose that relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
That's I'm kind of sorry. It's bringing back memories for me about stuff.
No, you're good.
Do you think that maybe this is the sport should probably focus a little bit more on its professionals rather than its amateurs, to where it's like most of the deals aren't done in amateur racing. They're actually done, and riders get rides from finishing well in the 250F class rather than the 250B class at Loretta or the 50cc class at Loretta, kind of a thing. Is it because it seems like all the factory contracts are signed when a kid is 5 years old, and if you sort of miss that window, then
you're fucked.
Yeah, you're screwed. Turning
Not
pro,
fucked, but-
what how many privateers get a factory ride if they didn't already have one in the amateurs? You know what I mean? The statistic is botched.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, I agree. I think there should be, it should definitely be more focused on professionals than amateurs for sure. It's wild for me to sit here and be like, oh, this kid is 13 and he just signed a 6-year contract or whatever. Like, it's like, what? Like, you don't even know how the kid's going to be on a big bike, Why is he signing a 6-year contract?
Yeah.
And, taking that spot away from somebody that's killing it, that just got 12th or something in the 250 class at round 1, It's just crazy to me, but I agree with that.
Or a family that is 100, 200 grand in debt that are living at facilities that are ready to turn pro right now. And again, dude, at the beginning of this interview, I was telling you that a lot of you guys are incredibly talented. You guys are just missing the luck aspect of stuff, dude. And granted, everything that you went through has molded you to who you are today, but the sport didn't really help you as far as furnishing you. It furnishes a lot of kids. And even those kids, there's a lot of kids that have similar stories to you where they sign that 6-year contract and then they break their femur and same thing happens to you. They go into the next guy, right?
Yeah.
It's just a bummer. So the question is how do we grow this and how do we make this more of a community? Because we all talk about moto community. You go to the local track, like everybody's there for you. But like professionally, when money's involved, whether it's a Millsaps training facility versus, the Georgia facility, there is such a small market share that people end up going blows with. And it's unfortunate. And there should be enough. The pizza should be big enough so that everyone can take a slice, even the privateers. So a dude like you that's fast as fuck can show up and make $5,000. It doesn't seem out of the realm of possibilities because I know tracks, at least the owners that I've talked to, they spend $100,000 to just have a national. And then they put up at least half or the full purse amount for the whole deal, so it's just the whole thing kind of, I'm not trying to be nihilistic about the whole thing. I'm coming from a privateer's perspective, and it's very rare that, you guys end up not having a salty taste in your mouth once you hang up the boots. You will always love riding dirt bikes, but you might not enjoy racing a dirt bike. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I will say one thing that needs to happen if this sport wants to grow is some of these pro riders need to let go of their ego because their ego can get in the way of so much. Like they act like they're hot shit. And honestly, that drives me away almost as much as like getting fucked over on purse money or, whatever it is. Like seeing these pros walk through the pits like they're shit. They're the shit. They don't want to sign autographs for their fans. They don't want to talk to people. I get they're there to do a job and they're there to race. But, dude, these fans are paying to come and see you. Like, go out and sign the autograph, Go talk to the guy. Say, take a picture with him, whatever. Some of these pros are just so stuck in their own ego, and it's just drives me nuts because they don't realize that this sport and they wouldn't be where they are today without the people watching, without the people showing up and, wearing the Chase Sexton, or, nothing against Chase Sexton, but like, wearing the pro rider t-shirt or the merch or their jersey, whatever, like these riders need to let their ego go.
Elaborating a little bit, because you guys are all pros, are you saying the factory riders, not just the privateers, or are you saying accumulative?
I'm talking everybody because some of these privateers have bigger egos than like a Eli Tomac. And I'm not afraid to say that, like, I sometimes maybe I've came off that way too. Like, I'm sure I have. But, like, dude, some of these privateers, like, just think they're the shit. And it's so annoying. And it's like, dude, you don't understand. Like, this little kid wants to take a picture with you. Like, take the picture with him. You're not so significant,
1,000%, dude. That is actually really good advice that I haven't thought of before. It makes sense because this whole sport, like, it's perceived as one person, you know, and they're the one that get all the clout and blah, blah, blah. I can't tell you how many factory mechanics I've talked to, you know, behind the scenes and stuff, where they're upset, where the riders, the commission as far as on a factory mechanic is kind of determined by the factory rider. The team will say, hey, you have to give him 5% of your purse money in some of your bonuses, but you don't have to give any more than that. And usually that's not that much money for somebody that's putting 80 hours plus into keeping your ass safe, okay? You know, it's like, now's not a good time to be a dick. Maybe show some compassion and give back a little bit. And again, dude, this is why I've talked about even though I'm conservative, I pictured myself more of in the gray, all right, if I'm talking politics. Things have gotten so left or right that I'm more in the gray now than what I was a few years ago. However, the Democrat in me is going, what motocross and supercross needs is the privateers union. We need a riders union to get some of this stuff handled, because the power is with the people. It's not just MX Sports, it's Feld as well, right? Everyone is conditioned to just being a participant rather than making a living at the sport. And if all the riders just decided to not fucking show up, they'd have to pay them more. There's money there, okay? And they're making it. It's just the 1% on the top is the ones that making it. If they just trinkle just a little bit of crumbs down there, you guys would be more than happy to be... You know how much better if everyone was being paid? Everyone would be in such a better attitude. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be so much better. Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Nick, is there... I know I told you I was only going to keep you for about 20 minutes, and we're about 50 minutes into here. It's been a great conversation, but is there anything else you want to add? Like, what are your plans for 2023? You know, is it more professionally with MX Locker, or are you planning on full-blown going racing? I mean, what would you like to do?
Honestly, like, I don't really even think racing's on the schedule next year. I might pop up, do Redbud maybe. But right now it's mainly just business. I want to grow my like socials, and I just want to push and enjoy having fun and growing the brands that I'm, you know, in with. Like, I don't want to focus too much on going and racing. And, you know, I got to go get 20th, or I got to go get a national number, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to operate that way anymore. And I don't really even have like a plan. I kind of just want to go out. I want to, you know, have fun. I want to go do cool film projects, whatever. Like, I just want to go enjoy riding my dirt bike. You know, I'm so busy. Like, I'm working damn near 2 full-time jobs at this point, like sun up to sundown, just grinding with everybody at, you know, MX Locker. And I'm also a part of the gear company Active, and, you know, I'm helping that. And I'm so busy with that I haven't even thought about racing anymore.
Remember what I said at the beginning of this deal is whatever you decided to do, you're going to be successful because of your work ethic with riding. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing, Nick. And
that's the plan.
The risk versus reward with racing professionally, you know, it consumes you. There's, okay. I guess maybe I'll leave on this. There's an analogy where you look at a stove, there's 4 burners to it, right? And one burner is friends, another burner is family, another burner is health, and then another burner is professional, you know, business. And if you want to be in the top 10% of any given field, you know, you got to turn off 2 burners, right?
Yep.
And then if you want to be the top 1% in your field, you got to turn off 3. So you basically have to shut everything out and just be a completely dick to just the one thing, you know? And if you choose just that one thing, it better kind of fulfill you financially, you know, emotionally, mentally. It should make you happy. And unfortunately, with 99% of racing motorcycles, it doesn't accomplish that things. It just kind of bleeds you dry, which is sad, And that's why it needs to change. And it's going to change by more people like you speaking up and building the industry, because I can tell, dude, how passionate you are about, like, let's just go ride in the hills. I just want to ride my dirt bike, just let the emotions go, because it gets you in the zone. It turns everything off. And
100%.
I appreciate you, dude, talking with me and sharing some personal stuff. Where can we find you? And do you have anything anybody that you want to thank? I'll leave the closing statements to you, but you got a prop with me too.
I got a prop. All right. Like, honestly, the only people I can really thank, they aren't really sponsors. They're more like just close people to me, is obviously my parents and my girlfriend Summer, and everybody involved with Active, MX Locker, everybody that's helped me and pushed me to become the person I am. I'm not going to say I can't thank them enough, because that's what everybody says, right? But I'm very appreciative towards those people, for sure.
Hell yeah, dude. And we'll link all your stuff down in the description below. Everyone, go follow this mofo, because he's a good human being, and we want to see him out of the track. We don't want to see him, give up on riding. And go check out MX Locker. And what was the gear company? Active?
Active. It's spelled AEKTIV. On Instagram, it's AEKTIVCO, Active Co.
Okay.
So, yeah. And you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, maybe starting a YouTube soon. I don't know yet. I'm kind of up in the air about that right now.
Hell yeah,
but
why
that'll
not?
Happen eventually.
Why not? There's only, time is finite. So at one day you might wish you did something. So it's better to do it now and learn along the way than regret it later. But Nick, I appreciate you're coming on the show here. Do you want to keep the WFO at Brop?
I might as well, right?
Heck yeah, dude. It's just it's only because it makes me feel stupid. Bro, da da da, oh, Nick, I don't see you properly.
I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can do that, man.